Yes, you mentioned how it's important when you're striving for MS, for truth. So it seems like that, especially with religious Zionism, which is, I would call, a fairly newer movement in the history of Judaism, if we can call it a movement. In many ways, the narrative that they're proposing, they're trying to fit it into. There's certain unique things happening right now, and now they're trying to mold and kind of conform things in the Torah and Halakha to fit that narrative, to kind of justify their position and lead to what you said was a self-satisfying state.
Mm-hmm.
But what scares me about that is that there's no, Rabbi Kiva had a bet. His wager was that was Mashiach, and he was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, what if we're wrong? What if it turns out that Eretz Yisrael, in laying back and sitting back and resting on our laurels, maybe we're setting ourselves up for the next destructive phase. Maybe, chas v'shalom, Eretz Yisrael, we're coming here, we're satisfied, we're not growing in tshuva. Maybe the next step is Rabbi Yeshua's position, which might end up being some of the kolos coming true in Eretz Yisrael, we being decimated once again, and then bringing us to tshuva. I don't know.
First of all, Ani lo navi v'lo ben navi. I can't say with certainty what tomorrow brings. I can tell you that there is a Midrash Tanchuma Kadum, which states explicitly that there is no Gula, there's no Galuth Shalishith. So that's one indication that's not a scenario that's really feasible. It's also, and Rav Kook, by the way, refers to that Midrash, and he seems to rely on it, to take it very seriously in one of his letters. Second of all, I've always been of the position that, as I mentioned at the beginning of the shiur today, when I was 18, 19, this was for me a very hot topic, which I was discussing with lots of different people from different backgrounds, whether this is a chalta de gula or it's not a chalta de gula, and how do you know, and why do you think it's not so? And at some point I realized that is really an empty discussion, and I'll tell you why. Not because I wouldn't be pleased if I could prove to you that this is definitely a chalta de gula, that would be tremendous, but it really makes very little difference. Why? Because we, Am Yisrael, are commanded by Hashem to, as we said before, to be a mamlechet kohanim and a goy kadosh, which means that we are to strive at all times, in all generations, without exception, to the best of our ability, to bring to fruition, to realize in the real world all the different ideas, concepts, and mitzvot of the Torah. So one of the mitzvot of the Torah, and it's clear that the entire Torah is based on being a mamlechet kohanim, which means you can't be a mamlacha, you can't be a state if you're scattered around the globe. In other words, you have to be in Eretz Yisrael. That's the first step to living the full picture, the full version of the Torah. You can live a very partial version of Yiddishkeit in Chutz La'aretz, but nothing more than the very partial version. The problem is that many people have become so used to that very partial and in some ways even pathetic version of Judaism that they're overly satisfied and completely happy with that. That's also another danger. That danger is no less than the other one I described.
You could cite the Ramban about
you could,
every mitzvah is lacking if you can't do it in Eretz Yisrael.
Machon. So the entire Torah is predicated on the fact that Am Yisrael is supposed to be in Eretz Yisrael. We are therefore commanded to be in Eretz Yisrael. That is an essential part of the Torah, as the Ramban writes explicitly. I don't believe for a moment the Rambam with the Mem disagrees, and Or HaChaim says exactly the same thing, and the Rambam does not disagree, and he couldn't disagree, because again, that's the essential assumption on which the entire Torah is based. Now, if that's the case, as I once said in a certain forum, the Torah actually, therefore, commands us to establish a Jewish state in Eretz Yisrael, because that's the basis on which from which the rest of the Torah flows. And that's why we're told before we receive the Torah, you will be a mamlechet kohanim. In other words, all of this is for you to go to Eretz Yisrael and do the following: go through the whole plan that I'm laying out before you, and make it happen. So, and when I said this in a certain forum where I said this, there was a certain young man, a Chabadnik, who got up and jumped out of his seat and he said, "Well, I've never heard such a thing. It says in the Torah you have to set up a state." I said, "Yes, it does." He says, "Where does it say?" I said, "Well, it says, how do you explain, how do you understand that?" He didn't have an answer, because there is no answer, because that's what it means. We are told, we are commanded by Hashem to make real and apparent in this world, all aspects of the Torah, all the entire plan that Hashem lays out for us in the Torah, that is laid out for us in the Nevi'im, it is our duty and our responsibility and our destiny to make this happen in the real world. We are not always in a position to make that happen completely or even partially. If we're in, ba'omek hagaluth, and we're barely surviving, and we can't even, because she can run our daily lives and get by, we can't think about bigger things. So in that kind of situation, we're basically anusim. But when we're not anusim to that extent, we are commanded to pick ourselves up, return to Eretz Yisrael, and start putting everything into practice, to implement the Torah to the fullest extent. We are always commanded to do that, and it has nothing to do with whether I think this period is now called Galut, or this period is called Adchat de Gula, whether it's called Ikvada de Mashiach, or any other name that you choose to you prefer. It makes no difference. The Torah, the halakha, the different miswot in the Torah are not predicated on these different terminologies and on our own subjective and not necessarily conclusive interpretations as to what the reality outside, which of these terms the reality outside fits. We are commanded to move forward along the path of the Torah and implement the Torah at all times. So what are you suggesting? What's the option? There's no other option. The option is for all of Am Yisrael, for everybody, to pick themselves up, come here and do that which the Torah lays out for us.
But what I encourage our students to think of living in Eretz Yisrael as is as the stepping stone to the next phase, meaning that we come here and we use this as an opportunity for us to perform more mitzvot, to dedicate ourselves more to learning Torah, to raise the Am to a higher level. But if we don't use Eretz Yisrael as an opportunity, then we're profaning, we're desecrating Eretz Yisrael. Because if we come here, and I met people who made Aliyah, and they say, I've accomplished what God said I should do, and I'm done. And they were learning more.
Well, that's a mistake. Obviously, that's a mistake. But it's not correct. I can't agree that it's obviously an incorrect approach to Jewish existence. But it's not true. I wouldn't say it's correct to say to a person, well, if you don't intend to learn more Torah when you come here than you were learning in New York or in New Zealand, then you shouldn't come here. No. Also, I don't think we should view coming to Eretz Yisrael as some kind of tonic, as it were, to strengthen our spiritual abilities and proclivities in order to be, bigger tzaddikim on the personal, individual level. That can also be the case, and that's a good thing, Vadai. And it is one of the sugulot of Eretz Yisrael, that it has that effect on a person if he opens himself up to that. That's why Rabbi Nachman Breslev came here for a short time, for example, to sort of soak that up. Mm-hmm. But it's more important here, I think, to focus on the national purpose of the Jewish people as a nation, as a Torah nation. And the Torah nation can only exist in Eretz Yisrael. We can't be a Torah nation in any other place on earth. And if we're not focusing on that, then we're really we're missing the central thrust of the Torah. And therefore, we always have to come here, and we always have to do our utmost to implement the Torah to the fullest extent. And therefore, and to speculate about what might be, what could be, what will happen if this happens, who can say? All we know is so far that right now, probably even more than half, but certainly half the Jewish people are here today, right now. And unfortunately, we know what goes on in Chutz La'aretz in terms of assimilation and what have you. That percentage is only going to rise over time. This is where it's going to happen. It's not going to happen anywhere else. It can't happen. It's not supposed to happen anywhere else. And to a large extent, it's in our hands. Sure, many things are in the hands of Hashem, but many things are also in our hands.
Sure.
The production of these videos and maintaining this channel demands much time and money. If you enjoyed this video, please show your appreciation and support. To make a donation, please go to www.machonshilo.org and press the PayPal button, which appears on the upper right-hand side of the home page. To sponsor a video or purchase Birkon Nusach Eretz Yisrael, please write us at office@machonshilo.org.